My sister thinks I'm being selfish because I'm not putting my own health at risk to give her a baby. 4 months ago, I gave birth to my little ray of sunshine, Leo. He's my fourth kid, and if you're a parent, you know each childbirth is its own unique blend of miraculous and terrifying. But Leo's arrival was something else. I've had my share of oohs and ahs in the delivery room, but this time it was more intense and kinda scary. The pregnancy was high risk from the get-go. I mean, the kind where you get extra attention from the doctors, not the fun kind, obviously. The whole experience was full of doctor's appointments, unexpected complications, and a whole lot of worrying. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity during labor, Leo was born, healthy and screaming his little heart out. And me? I was exhausted, relieved, and just done. The doctors were pretty clear post-delivery, no more babies for me. My body had sent a clear memo, it was time to close the baby factory. Ethan, my husband, totally agreed. Without any fuss, he went for a vasectomy. Enter my sister, Bella. Bella and her boyfriend, Jake, had been trying for a baby for a while. It was like their own little project, filled with hope and excitement. Then, bam, they hit a wall. Bella found out she couldn't conceive. It hit her hard. I felt for her, I really did. There's something about wanting something so bad and finding out it might not happen that just gets to you. Our family, being the typical noisy but well-meaning bunch, started throwing around ideas. Adoption, surrogacy, you name it. Jake was on board with exploring these options, but Bella, she was hesitant. It's like she needed time to process, to grieve the idea of not carrying her own child. Then, a couple of nights ago, Bella called. It started as a regular sisterly chat, you know, the usual catch-up, how are the kids, how's work, yada yada. But as the conversation went on, I could sense there was something more. And then she said it. Not directly at first, more like hinting. Talking about how I'd been such a natural at pregnancy. How I'd made it look easy, if only she knew. I felt this cold sweat break out. The endless doctor's visits, the complications, the fear. Man, it was a nightmare. I tried steering the conversation away, talking about other potential surrogates, even adoption. I reminded her of my last ordeal, how it was anything but a walk in the park. But she brushed it off, saying everything turned out fine in the end. Bella circled back, each time more direct. That's when she asked, point blank, if I'd be her surrogate. Just like that. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. This was my sister, asking me to put my body, my health, on the line again. After everything. In that moment, I was back in that delivery room, feeling every ache, every scare. I knew then, without a shadow of a doubt, that I couldn't do it. I couldn't risk going through that again. Not just for me, but for my kids, for Ethan. They needed me, whole and healthy. I love her, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I had to say no. And that's where it all started to unravel. Bella accused me of being selfish, of not caring about her happiness. I tried to explain, to make her understand the risks, the fear, but she wasn't hearing any of it. To her, I was just the sister who refused to help. We ended the call on the worst terms, her screaming, me hanging up, feeling a mix of anger and guilt. The next morning, my phone was buzzing with messages, missed calls, notifications from Facebook. Bella had taken our private conversation public, painting me as the villain in her quest for motherhood. According to Bella, I was this cold-hearted sister, hoarding my ability to have kids, refusing to help her achieve her dream of motherhood. The comments were a mix of sympathy for her and shade for me. Some family members and friends I'd known for years were suddenly on Team Bella, calling me selfish and worse. Then there was my side of the fence. My husband, Ethan, standing firmly by my side. He knew the toll the last pregnancy had taken on me, both physically and mentally. My dad, a man of few words, showed his support quietly but firmly. He understood that my health wasn't something to gamble with. And a few friends and relatives reached out, offering kind words and understanding. I was torn between anger and guilt. Angry because my personal decision, made for my health, was being dragged through the mud. Guilty because, deep down, I wondered if there was more I could do for Bella. My mind kept replaying our childhood memories, the times we'd supported each other. My mom, always the peacemaker, tried to stay neutral, but I could tell she was leaning towards Bella. She would give me these looks and I knew she was disappointed in me. I am not going to lie, it hurt. My brothers were split. One agreed with me outright, saying my health came first. The other was more sympathetic to Bella, though he didn't outright condemn my decision. After days of mulling it over, I decided I couldn't just sit back. It was time for my side of the story. So, I took a deep breath and made my own Facebook post. I poured everything into it, the fear, the pain of my last pregnancy, the doctor's warnings, and how torn I felt about Bella's request. I hit post and braced myself. The response was mixed, but at least some people started to see where I was coming from. A few relatives and friends who had been quick to judge suddenly came forward with apologies. They hadn't known the full story, the real risks involved. But here's the thing, Bella's boyfriend, Chris, had been totally in the dark about the surrogacy thing. He had no clue that Bella had asked me to be their surrogate. He saw my post and was, understandably, shocked. It turns out, Chris was under the impression they were still exploring other options. Adoption. Other surrogates. Chris reached out to me, confused and a little upset. He was a decent guy, always had been, and the last thing he wanted was for family ties to be strained like this. He explained that if he'd known about Bella's plan to ask me, he would have talked her out of it. He understood the risk to my health and didn't want that for me, or for their potential child to be born under such stressful circumstances. It was like a domino effect. Once Chris's side of the story got out, more family members began to see the complexity of the situation. They understood that this wasn't just a simple case of me being selfish. It was about my health, my family, and also about Bella and Chris not being on the same page. So, Mom and I decided to meet up for lunch to talk things out. I thought it was going to be a chance to clear the air, to help her see my side of things. The moment I sat down, I could tell this wasn't going to be easy. Mom had this look that says she's made up her mind and good luck changing it. She's always had a soft spot for Bella, but I didn't realize how deep it went until that lunch. We started off with small talk, but it quickly shifted to the whole surrogate debacle. I tried to explain my side, about how my last pregnancy was really rough, and how the doctors had advised against me having more kids. I wanted her to understand that it wasn't a simple decision. But Mom, she just wasn't having it. She kept going on about family and helping each other out. I get that, I really do, but this was about my health. It felt like she was just brushing that aside. Every time I brought up my concerns, she'd counter with something about how family sticks together, how I should be there for Bella. It got heated, and I could feel myself getting frustrated. There was this moment, right, where she said something along the lines of, "You've already had 4 kids, what's one more?" I tried to get her to see how this was affecting me, how torn I felt. But it was like talking to a wall. She was so fixated on Bella's happiness, it felt like mine was just an afterthought. The lunch ended pretty awkwardly. We both kind of just ran out of things to say. It was clear that Mom was firmly on Team Bella, and that wasn't going to change. Enter my dad, David. He's always been the quiet type, more likely to show his feelings through actions than words. Out of the blue, Dad showed up at my doorstep with a suitcase in hand. He asked if he could stay with us for a while. I was taken aback, but of course, I said yes. Dad opened up about how disappointed he was with Mom. He couldn't fathom how she was so blind to Bella's manipulation and how she disregarded my health. Hearing him say that, it was both comforting and saddening. The kids loved having him around, and even Ethan seemed relieved to have another ally in our corner. My brothers and I had often felt that Bella was the golden child, Mom's favorite. Growing up, it was like we were living in her shadow. She got away with things that would have landed us in deep trouble. One evening, while the kids were asleep and Ethan was working late, Dad and I got to talking about the past. We talked about the times when Bella threw tantrums and got her way, or when she made mistakes and Mom would brush them off. Dad admitted that he could have been more assertive, but he'd always tried to keep the peace, not wanting to rock the boat too much. Dad seemed regretful, wishing he'd done more to balance things out. But as he said, you can't change the past, only learn from it. Each of my kids, they've changed me in ways I can't even begin to explain. They've made me stronger, more patient, more loving. But they've also made me more vulnerable, more aware of the fragility of life. I've always been the type to put others first, to be the peacekeeper. But this time, it's different. I had to put myself first this time, which has been hard to deal with. The last pregnancy was a wake-up call. I was lucky to come out of it with a healthy baby and my own health intact. But what if I'm not so lucky next time? The thought of leaving my kids without a mother, of putting Ethan through that kind of pain, it's unbearable. After a lot of thinking and some late-night heart-to-hearts with Dad, I decided it was time to try and mend fences with Bella and Mom. Not easy, considering everything, but necessary. Holding on to anger and resentment, it's like carrying a weight around. And frankly, I'm tired. First up was Bella. I sent her a text, simple and to the point, asking if we could talk. No response for days. But then, out of the blue, she replied. Okay. That's all it said. But it was something. It was awkward at first, lots of beating around the bush. But eventually, we got down to it. I explained my side, again. How my last pregnancy had scared me, how the doctors had advised against another one. I told her I understood her pain, her desire to have a child, but I couldn't risk my health. Bella was quiet, which was unlike her. She admitted she hadn't really considered the risks to me, just her own need to be a mom. We left things unresolved but slightly less tense. It was a baby step, but a step nonetheless. Next was Mom. This was harder. I invited her over for coffee. She came, but the air was thick with unsaid things. I told her how her favoritism had hurt me, how it felt like she didn't care about my well-being. She listened, really listened. And then she surprised me. She apologized. Said she hadn't realized how her actions had affected me. Now, Chris has talked to Bella, helping her see how her actions had impacted the family. He was supportive of her, but also made her understand that there were other ways to have a family. Adoption, other surrogates, so many options they hadn't really explored. And then there was the whole concept of surrogacy itself. It's not just a medical procedure. It's emotional, complex. It's asking someone to carry a child, to take on all the risks and changes that come with pregnancy. It's a huge ask. Bella and I, were started to spend time together, just the two of us, trying to find that sisterly bond we once shared. Mom's relationship with the rest of the family is also slowly healing. She's making an effort, in her own way. The past months have been a journey of ups and downs, but finally, there's a sense of peace settling over our family. Bella has started exploring alternative family planning methods. After everything that happened, she and Chris took a step back to reassess their options. They're now looking into adoption, a path that seems to bring them both a sense of excitement and purpose. It's heartwarming to see her channel her desire to be a mom into this new direction. I've grown more confident in setting and maintaining personal boundaries, especially when it comes to my health and well-being. I've learned that it's okay to prioritize myself, that my health isn't just about me but about my ability to be there for my family. As I look to the future, I do so with hope. Wishing Bella and Chris the best as they start the process of adopting a child. Hope that our family will continue to heal and grow. Hope for myself as I continue to deal with life's ups and downs.